Hello, book lovers. This is the Blue-Eyed Black Devil. Welcome back to the channel. Visitors, if you are new to my channel or happen upon my channel, feel free to join us. We would love to have you here. Okay, book lovers, I am here to give a completed recap and review of the book Shattered Secrets. This is the first book in the Cold Creek Trilogy, written by Karen Harper. All right, now, each one of these books focuses on one particular sister. In this book, we start out reading or learning the youngest Lockwood sister's story, Teresa Lockwood, or as she prefers to be called now, Tess Lockwood. Alright, this book has 391 pages and the approximate reading time is 9 hours. Okay, so like I said, this is Shattered Secrets, the first book of the Cold Creek Trilogy, written by Karen Harper. So let's go. Tess Lockwood, the youngest of the Lockwood sisters, has returned to Cold Creek, Ohio to sell her childhood family home that she recently inherited. She reacquainted herself with the people in the town from long ago, one of whom was Sheriff Gabriel McCord. Her cousin Lee's wife, Gracie, kept her abreast of the goings-on of the town since she and her family had moved away some 18 years ago. Upon her return, she learned that 3 other little girls are now currently missing. Mayor Reese Owens told Tess that she should not hang around long, and while she is there, that she should steer clear of Gabe and the investigation into the missing little girls. Then he gave her her father's phone number and suggested that she call him because Tess and her sisters had become estranged from her father when their parents got a divorce. I still don't know why he would think that she would know how to get in touch with her dad. I don't know, maybe her dad had told him that he had lost touch with him. Anyway, Gabe showed her the scarecrow that he had reconstructed based on what she remembered from her own kidnapping. She almost went into hysterics, but she automatically recognized it as being named Mr. Mean. Tess and Lee are watering the grounds of the Hear Ye commune. Bryce Munson, the leader of the commune, invited her to join them for a Sunday service. Gabe took the scarecrow to his best friend, Grant Mason, to see what, if anything, he could remember about who made it and what year. But Grant really didn't know anything except that his mom, meaning Grant's mom and Gabe's mom and some of their friends, used to make them every year for Halloween. He, meaning Gabe, went to Wanda Kirk and then to the librarian, Etta Foss, to see what they remembered about the scarecrows. Apparently, Marva Green, she was this is Dame Thompson's sister. Well, it wasn't so much her. Dame had been a suspect in Tess's kidnapping 18 years ago, and Marva still felt the need to keep her brother's name clean all this time later. Tess called Gabe to report that someone had cut her power lines, and there was a light coming from the cornfield she'd been kidnapped from all those years ago. She'd been strongly advised against staying at her childhood home until she knew that her power had been restored. So she ended up staying with Gabe for the time being. One night she overheard a child's voice coming from the room down the hall. She went to investigate and found that it was the voice of one of the missing little girls. Gabe explained to her that the missing girl's parents had given him the video, which is what Tess heard. Marva's brother Dame was a suspect, but the police couldn't he was a suspect in these three little girls' disappearance, but the police couldn't make anything stick on him. He, meaning Gabe, told Tess that her father, as well as he himself, blamed himself for her kidnapping. Her dad admitted that he knew that Gabe actually had nothing to do with Tess being abducted. Gabe took Tess back home so he could further investigate, but he really didn't get anywhere. He went to interview Dr. Linda Stevens, and she was the local veterinarian. She told him that 20 years ago, she and Dane had dated, and that he was her drug supplier, but she insisted that everything was above board, however. Next, they, meaning Gabe and Tess, went to interview a woman who lived in the neighborhood that Mayor Reese Owens grew up in. They learned that he'd gotten into trouble years earlier as a teenager himself for committing a sex crime against another girl. She, meaning the older lady, said that her husband and others in the neighborhood had accepted hush money all those years ago. And I guess the only reason she was talking is because she was the only one left to live. Everyone else had died. Gabe came back to find that Tess, he went to find Tess at her house, and he found that she had passed out. She came around as he called the ambulance. Now, Tess found out that her mother and Gabe's father had an affair. She felt so betrayed by her parents, her siblings, and the man she thought she loved, which was Gabe. She stormed into his office and confronted him. He told her that he was only honoring her family's wishes by not telling her. She left his office and went home before heading to the pet cemetery, which was right behind Dame Thompson's house. She hid and watched, as he pulled up in his truck. He got out of his truck. He was on his cell phone talking to someone. Now, she assumed that he would either go inside his house or go into the veterinarian clinic, which was right next door to his house, but he didn't go into either one of them. Instead, he headed for the pet cemetery. She thought he spotted her, but he didn't. In fact, he went right past her, heading for the cornfield that she herself had been kidnapped from 18 or 19 years earlier. All of a sudden, she heard Dame shout, "No!" And then she heard one single bang. Dame was no more. Gabe and Vic are discussing who could have killed Dame and why. At first, his sister, Dame's sister that is, Marva, and Vic thought that Tess did it. But now one of the missing little girls, Amanda, has been found. Her mother contacted Gabe and said that she was living with her father. Tess took it upon herself to visit Marva, Dame's sister. Slowly, she made her way inside, where she saw a female and some men in a room. She realized that she had stumbled upon a meth lab. The group, saw her. The men wanted to kill her because they didn't know what she saw and or heard, but the female convinced them not to kill her, so they tied her up and gagged her instead before they left. Gabe made his way out to Marva's and freed Tess. She told, excuse me guys, she told him what she saw. Gabe confronted his secretary Ann's brother, Jonas Webb, about the meth lab. When he showed up at his office with Jonas in tow, Ann didn't quite know what to think. Gabe ordered her to write a statement out saying how long she'd been giving him and his crew heads up about the investigation. After all of that happened, Tess decided to call her father. And they talked for a while. She told him that she was back in Cold Creek initially to sell the childhood family home, and she wanted to open a daycare, but the main reason she was there was that she needed to seek closure for what happened to her. He told her that one of the reasons he no longer lived in Cold Creek is because he had been run out of town by Mayor Reese Owens. Now, Gabe and Mayor Reese Owens are discussing the current kidnappings, meaning the 3 little girls, well now 2 because one has been found. And they were discussing those as well as Tess's kidnapping. Gabe told him about the arrest of Jonas Webb and the meth lab. He then went on to imply that he knew that Mir Owens had been prosecuted as a teenager for a sex crime. The mayor was outraged. He threatened to fire Gabe if he continued to pursue his past transgressions, but Gabe didn't flinch. Tess and Vic went to the Harper commune to see her cousin Lee and his family, but they ended up running into Bryce Munson instead. He told her that she could meet with her cousin, but it would have to be the next day at noon. Gabe went back to the library to question Etta Falls some more. Now, Etta Falls is the librarian. She told him that the pistol used in the disposal of Dane Thompson could very well have belonged to her family. Gabe received a phone call from Vic. He told him that he had just gotten a phone call from Mir Owens' former housekeeper, Ruby Pirtle. She said that Mir Owens had a cabin that no one knew about, including his wife. She said that she had been fired, but she had been given a big payoff and a good recommendation. Now, on the way in search of this hidden cabin, Vic told Gabe about a couple of child-sized graves that he and Tess spotted on the grounds of the Harper commune. Tess was at Gabe's office manning the phones. On her lunch break, she decided to go get the book from the library that Etta wanted Gabe to read. She was going to give it to him, but he ended up running out after he got that phone call from Vic. So Etta took Tess to the bookmobile, supposedly to retrieve the book, but instead she pulled something from a brown paper sack and dabs Tess in the neck with something she had in some kind of a syringe. Etta calmly told Tess that she had to subdue her because she couldn't risk her remembering anything more about her being kidnapped. Meanwhile, Gabe and Vic located Mir Owens' hideaway cabin. They shot their way inside, only to find nothing but article after article on the television show The Biggest Loser. And markings all over the walls of Mir Owens' fluctuated weight. He had to have a hideaway cabin just to have somewhere to watch, archive, and review and research The Biggest Loser and log his weight. I know, I kept wondering from time to time they would make mention of how big the mayor had gotten, well, his weight over time. Now, they never quoted like a poundage. They never said Yeah, he was up to 300 pounds or 250, 400. They didn't give a number. They just said that his girth had grown considerably and that it was making it harder for him to wear a seatbelt properly. And then that only to find out this man had been hiding out watching The Biggest Loser and watching his weight go up and down. Okay. Okay. Etta bound and gagged Tess and threatened to put her underground with the bones. Now, when she heard Etta say that, the memories came flooding back to her all at once. Etta took Tess to a room that she, Etta, called the book barn. She kept telling her that she shouldn't have broken a window and then tried to run. Etta said her mother, Sybil, or Mama Sybil, as Etta referred to her, used to hit her with Mr. Mean. When Etta told her that, Tess remembered, oh no, the Scarecrow wasn't Mr. Mean. The Scarecrow was Mama Sybil, and it was Mrs. Mean. Now, the first thing that went through my mind when I heard this was, now, why is it that no one in the town, because the Scarecrow was made in the image of Sybil Falls. But I guess that nobody noticed that but Etta. And the only other reason I can figure that no one else noticed that is because Sybil was on into her 80s. So she didn't get out of the house anymore, and nobody, I guess, ever went in except for whatever child Etta got and bought back there, but no adults did. So, yeah, Mrs. Mean turned out to be Mama Sybil, or Etta's mother. Now, Mama Sybil would also hit Tess with that same Scarecrow whenever Tess cried for home or whenever she did not want to cuddle up to be read to. Etta took Tess to her mother, or Mama Sybil, and Sandy, one of the other missing little girls. Now, she confessed while she was taking Tess up here, she confessed to burying Jill, the third missing little girl. She confessed to burying her in their family cemetery. And she also admitted to killing Dane Thompson. All right, but why did you kill Dane, though? Dave and Vic had returned to find Tess missing. Etta returned as promised just before dark to take her to Mama Sybil and Sandy. Tess pretended to be heavily sedated. Tess smiled to see that Sandy was still alive, but just as shocked to see that Mama Sybil was no more. Mama Sybil is now a big, gigantic wooden doll placed in a chair on wheels with fire red, ropey, or yarn-like hair. All I could think of is like that Raggedy Ann and Andy hair. That's what I thought about when they were describing Mama Sybil. When she, meaning Tess, tried to question Etta, she was hit over the head. When she woke up, Sandy was in her face crying, and together they plotted their getaway. Tess managed to slam the door against Etta, knocking her down to the stair landing below. Back and forth she and Etta went until Tess and Sandy managed to break free. Gabe and Vic finally found them and returned Sandy to her parents. It was determined that Etta had killed herself with one of her many guns. Tess decided to stay in Cold Creek in part to help Sandy through her horrible ordeal, but also to see how things would go with she and Gabe. Together, they decided to sell their houses and property, or houses rather, and they decided to purchase a big enough property so that Tess could build and open her daycare, and then they could have a house that they could live in also on that same property. Now, this, book lovers, is how this book ends. Now, like I said in installment 3 or part 3, it wasn't till the last 5 or 6 chapters or so that this book finally piqued and kept my interest. I am glad that I struggled through to reach these last few chapters, or otherwise I would have missed out on a real gem. You just could not have paid me to believe that the librarian was running around here doing all of this killing and burying people. And I mean, she had been doing it for, well, we know at least 18 or 19 years before she finally was found out, and she killed us. And let's see, she killed Dame Thompson. She killed the little girl, Jill. It did not say that she killed her mother. If that lady was in her 80s, she could have died of natural causes. And then one day, Etta may have just snapped and killed her herself. We never knew. But I just thought that it would have been something along the lines of Tess's cousin, Lee, and his family. Because when Tess came back to town, and even before she moved there, she always referred to Lee's wife as Gracie, as did everybody. But after Lee and his wife and family, after they had been fully indoctrinated or whatever into this sect, religious sect, for lack of a better phrase, Gracie went from being Gracie to being called Grace of God. Well, now, so what was that about? Also, what's up with Mayor Owens? I think that there's more to his story besides him having some sort of a fetish with the Biggest Loser and food. I don't know what that's about, but I would have thought that it would have been... Oh, and Bryce Munson. Who is he, and why does he just metamorphose out of thin air? All of a sudden, he's just there. And I think that it's common that anytime you have some sort of a commune or some sort of group of people that you kind of want to keep under your thumb, that you kind of pretty much speak up for everybody. But it just seems like he is too exact. Like when he said that She could visit with her cousin, but it would have to be at noon the next day. Why so specific? Why not tomorrow? I don't know. But anyway, this is the first book I have ever read by Karen Harper. And guys, book lovers, one and the like, is going to have to, these next two books in this trilogy is going to have to be super duper great for me to want to read another one or anything else by her. Like I said, this book at best was good, but if this was a standalone, I know I wouldn't read anything else. But because this is a trilogy, I will finish this trilogy. So in doing so, hopefully, the next two books will really be good. She will have redeemed herself in my eyes. But yes, I will finish this trilogy. Have any of you ever read anything by her? If you have, what did you think? Have you ever read this trilogy, or more specifically this book, before? If so, what did you think of it? Would you read it based on what I found that stood out to me? Or would you not read it? If so, why or why not? Okay, book lovers. This wraps this completed recap and review of the book, Shattered Secrets by Karen Harper. This is the first book of the Cold Creek Trilogy. And just know that all is well that reads well. Thank you, guys. Visitors, feel free to join us. Subscribers, let's make them feel welcomed. And if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. Hit the notification bell to be notified of every video I upload. Please like, share, comment respectfully. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy reading. Thank you. And God bless.